what's going on is we're trying to professionalize this industry, but it's quite a fairly broad industry. So what we've done is we've created 4 different designations in this professional body that's currently being registered with SACO, which is a South African Qualifications Authority that registers professional bodies, specifically for assessors. We've created 4 different designations and quite a deep dive rubric around what any assessor in any industry, whether it be education and training or recruitment or performance management or medical examinations, it's all assessment. And so we've kind of nailed down a rubric around the assessor. With our board, we believe in testing it on ourselves before we bring it to the public, and that's what we've done. And on that note, I would like to welcome Peta. Hey, Peta.
Welcome in a noisy car filled with dogs. Welcome, welcome.
And you're not driving, I hope.
No, I'm not driving.
Okay, so thanks for doing this kind of impromptu interview today. Peta, we are obviously exploring this fairly exciting world of assessments. Tell me, a little bit about, kind of where you come from and why would a designation of assessor be important for you and for the industry?
Okay. So I play in the ETD and workplace assessment space as a learning and development practitioner and consultant. And so with that in mind, I was immediately drawn to a designation as an assessor because I believe assessment practices not only drive skills development, but drive competency and performance management systems in workplaces too. So I decided that I need to have the recognition as an assessment professional, and I saw that DLAP particularly is the place to be because of the mere assessment practices and tools. So so that's why I applied and went through the process of registering.
So that's really interesting. And there's definitely, I think, a need for some more and more that I kind of look around the world. There seems to be a lot of learning going on in the workplace and the training, from a training perspective, from performance management perspective, from recruitment. There's a lot of assessment going on, but it seems that that the assessor in general is a link of somebody who did a course a while ago, and then kind of almost waits for work, doesn't do it often, and then kind of lets the whole process down. It's like a weaker link. If I could say that carefully before I get jumped on by 10 million assessors. I mean, what is your thoughts on that?
Yes, you're quite right. I think that assessment is largely reactive. So we wait a lot because we are not the driving or the initiator of the system. So we don't have a part to play in the input of a system. We work in the throughput side, and we have a great link to the output of all business systems. So we are very reliant on receiving work rather than initiating work. And with that said, yes, absolutely, you'd invest a lot of money in doing your assessor certification with a provider, and then basically sit on your hands and wait for learners to come through the process, unless, and this is what a lot of providers are doing, is making their facilitators assessors. Now that's great, and we understand in the ETD world why that would be the case. But I'm thinking with the professionalization of assessment, we are now saying that we are focusing on what really matters with the assessment process, and it can be across any sector. So it's not just focusing on ETD. And when we broaden it this way and we accept that assessment practices cut across sectors, we're focusing on those principles of assessment that we all spout forth as ETD practitioners, which is the values, authenticity, reliability, credibility, cost effectiveness, and sufficiency. And that should be our standing way of assessing all the time. So standardization is absolutely critical now.
That's very interesting because obviously as DLAP, I mean, you're on the board, you know this, so we've created a pretty intriguing rubric where I know our goal is not to say whether you are a good assessor or a bad assessor or whether you are accredited or not. That's not our goal. Our goal is to kind of level up this world of assessment or of the world of assessor to enable you to understand where you fit into the assessor process, into the assessment world. So, we have got those 4 designations, the one being foundational, the one being a real world assessor. I don't know who got that one. Tell me more. So, in the designations, we're doing it differently. So as part of DLAP, we're going, look, I don't want you to just pay us a fee and say, look, because of my CV, I want to be this designation. We're kind of going, no. If you want to be a designation, build a portfolio for us against the rubric. And as a group of experts, we will kind of assess you and you assess yourself to get your designation. And it's based on your own portfolio because that ultimately is what assessors do. And we're trying to mirror that in any industry this as it does. So in that, Peter, you logged onto the technology of P4P and you started building your portfolio against this rubric. Tell me what happened there.
Okay, so yeah, Darren, it's an amazing paradigm shift that took place for me personally. So immediately when I started the process, I jumped in both feet first in my conventional ETD mindset. And this has been this is a process of socialization in my mind where I've been groomed to think that when anybody assesses me on the other end, that being you, my assessor, is going to be looking at my percentage. So a linear kind of measurement from 0 to 100%, okay? So I then gathered evidence madly, thinking that I really need to strive for as close to 100% as possible. So the conventional mindset of driving an A symbol in my mind. And of course, that's also triggers my socialization in education. When I grew up, that's all I ever thought about was driving A's all the time. So, okay, so that was the first thing, was that mindset. The second thing was, I've had a lot of, I believe, quite a lot of broad experience in the digital world, more than most.
Yes.
I'm not the best expert. However, I made the fundamental mistake of rushing that digital side. So my mindset was always driven by conventional and digital to support. And the paradigm shift had to happen was digital drives it and my conventional mindset supports it.
Yeah.
So all the time, I mean, even what we've written on the rubric says support what you have with evidence. Well, there's the wording, support. You see, don't drive it by the evidence. You need to support it with the evidence. You trust the system, trust the process of the digital rubric to guide you through it and drive you. When I did that, so that was the second opportunity that I took to do it. And that's when I made that fundamental shift. And it was an aha moment when I realized it's not about the A, it's about the level that I operate in. So therefore, I'm looking at my contribution and how much work I spend and where I contribute most as an assessor in my day, in every single part of my day. And that may cross over into the creative side. but I had to be really honest about where I've spent most of my energy up until now in terms of assessment practices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's very important, Peter, and kind of, yeah, it's really interesting talking to you, because I was fortunate enough to be your assessor, but this is not a nepotistic thing. This interview, this is really because you got through. So you know, there was this, you know, you did the work, you got assessed, you didn't really comment on how well you had done. You kind of, like, you know, as you said, you rated yourself and kept going through with the initial mindset. And then, of course, I dived in and gave you a bit of feedback. Obviously, working a lot in the technology, in the specific technology of, you know, the assessment, the e-portfolio. And then you had a second go. So, you know, I think that the idea was not to try and find you in a place. It was to
Yeah.
allow you to kind of, to sink into you, to find that place. And what is your so what are your thoughts? I mean, we had that chat on Saturday last week where where we were talking about the second round of assessments. Your perspective as an assessor in terms of a second round of assessment, how does that kind of tie up? I mean, does it really work in ETD, or do people just do second round of assessments because they have to, versus there's a depth of growth that's going on, which is what we're trying to achieve? I mean, what are your thoughts around that?
That is so fundamental to assessment practices. And absolutely, I personally believe, in my opinion, that has been dropped off in the ETD space, because we are so focused, as I said, conventionally, in chasing the completion and the tick box process, that we forget what the main philosophy and principle of assessment is for developmental reasons. Doesn't matter whether it's assessment in a workplace or whether it's in skills development, we are still developmental in focus, which means then that we have to be open to that deep dive, and that the assessment process is a developmental journey within a journey. And that's exactly what I experienced personally. Was, wow, having taken my ego off the table in saying, oh, I'm not an A or a B or a whatever, and then parking that and looking at it more from an emotional intelligent point of view, where I'm saying, okay, this is where I've done all my work. So what do I want to be as an assessment professional? Which means listen to what my mentor is saying as the assessor voice, who's saying, you know what, looking from the outside in, this is what I see I need you to be doing in order to achieve that level of assessment that you would like. And the assessor has a conversation with the delegate. So you and I have had conversations, and you know where my drive is for, where I'm going towards. Obviously, as one of the board members of DLAP, my main drive is to make sure that I'm more digitized, and I'm also more open to not just ETD assessment practices, but other assessment practices. So with that in mind, your feedback was critical in my learning journey, because that's what is going to drive my continuous professional development, rather than me chasing where I am in comparison to the rest of the world. So now my growth is a more emotional intelligent growth. It's growing me as a person, rather than me comparing myself with that person out there and trying to be better than that person. So yeah, there's a sense of competition. That's all healthy, but it's now a more self-driven, and as I always say, the more emotional intelligent position where you're evaluating self. So from the inside out. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So I want to talk a little bit more in that, in terms of this rubric. So, um, I'm on a few conversations at the moment on different kind of platforms where around the world of recognition of prior learning and assessment side. And part of the discussion is the definition of the standards. So
Yeah.
assessors are often dropped into a deep end where the company, the provider, whoever, just expects them to know what to assess. It's, well, you know, you've been a manager for years, just assess supervisors. Or, hey, you've been, you know, you've trained generic management level 4 43 times. You should know what to assess on generic management. Or, hey, you're a recruitment specialist. You should know exactly what to look for in the recruitment space. And there's no real, there seems to be a limited, in some cases, you know, lack of definition of standards. So what we've done collectively in DLAP is we've created that rubric, which has 7 key outputs. You know, it has the VAX as one, reporting as one, the assessment process, the assessment artifacts, it has feedback, and your stakeholder analysis, because those are kind of the key drivers for an assessor, irrelevant of where you play. How do you feel when you were the candidates? So you weren't the assessor, you're on the other side. You know, you helped design those, which is one thing, and then you saw them. You're like, oh, there they are, and kind of they're the definition there. How do you feel those were defined? I mean, did that give really good guidance to you to know where to look and what evidence to find?
Yes. So I do believe that, having been on essentially both sides of the fence, for want of a better word, from a point of view, is that I think that the assessor needs to actually experience the assessment process for themselves to iron out those standards. Because on paper, when we look at them and we set standards, we set it from our mindset, and we forget, and our lens is from our own perspective. We need to then take off our glasses and look at it from a different point of view and have that different perspective. And so that's what that enabled me to do. And so I do believe, yes, absolutely, the feel of what we have created on our rubric is really relevant, because we have gone back to basics, where we have looked at each standard from a recipient's point of view, what we call the candidate's point of view. And we have tried to keep it as open as possible to ensure that we allow for more sectors. And I think it does exactly that, because you can bring in your different context overlaying rubric, which is our standard. And I do believe that was the intention of standardization in the first place, was to set a baseline on which to overlay your personal perspective, your personal workspace of evidence, and so that you can show that you, and in that specific context, are at a particular point, or that you're demonstrating a particular form of assessment. And then you're demonstrating in real time what you are in terms of those standards. And that was what I firmly believe in all my training, and why I jumped into becoming a industrial psychologist, and also becoming a learning and development practitioner regarding assessment. That was always what the underlining intention was always about. They always focused on, yes, standards are important, but the standard keeps you at a level, and everything you have, you overlay over the top, and you can reach, eventually those layers build, and then you get to the next standard. So it's almost like in the world of gaming, you start leveling up. And I don't want to use the word level, because again, I know the power of words. We use that word level so loosely, and then we shove our brains down that conventional mindset of chasing A's and B's and C's and all those good things. That's not what it's about. It's about showing where you are in real time as an assessor. And yeah, contribution. I was really reflecting about this. What are we proving? We're not proving, or we're not providing evidence of being a student. We are providing evidence for a designation in terms of our contribution to the profession. Wow. How much do I contribute, and where do I contribute? Yeah. Where am I in my unique skill set? Where am I leveraging myself? Yeah.
So that's really interesting, and especially around the concept of leveling. So, what we're trying to achieve is we're trying to achieve. So we've got the 4 designations. They are in and of themselves. They're not linked to each other in terms of leveling. They are kind of 4 different provinces, if you could call it that. However, what you're talking about is leveling up within your designation. So you've achieved the designation of real world assessor, what we've called RA, the real world assessor, which is great. It's where you play, it's how you engage. And now the next step for you then, as we're talking, is in your CPD for this year, is to decide how you want to play in your designation. So you've got the designation, it kind of, and we've mapped the designation against Bloom. So you're sitting at kind of a Bloom, in the first 5 levels of Bloom's taxonomy. That's where, that's kind of how we've mapped the real world assessor. And the choice is either to, I want the 6th level for whatever reason you would want that for career growth, for, personal reasons, or no, I want to stay in the level 5. That's perfect, the 5th level. And I want to become the best level 5 that there's ever been. So that's where the competition kicks in, because you keep developing your skills in the place in which you play, in the strengths in where you are playing. And, like you and me, we've been in our careers for a while now. So, to stay strong, to understand where we play and stay strong in that area enables everyone else, as opposed to trying to, get to the next level and be seen and all those scenarios. So I think it's a really interesting, what you're talking about, and what we got to focus on in CPD is provide enough ways for CPD to happen so that you can keep growing in your area of where you want to be. So, you choose what's going on.
Yeah. And that's, when you say this, it brings to mind what Robin Sharma, the leadership guru, says. We need to individually focus on becoming masters of our craft, because we have become, we've got a unique skill set, we've got a unique personality set. And so I personally, with my CPD and what you have triggered for me, is to become the master of my craft. Nice. And I really want to hone it through continued practice and from continued interaction with peers and with experts. And that means that I need to make sure that I am not always the expert in the room, that I have what I perceive bigger experts in the room who drive me and stretch me. And that's what I'm looking for DLAP to assess. That's what I want DLAP to recognize for me, is how much of a master of my craft, which we call assessment, am I? And then give me that recognition, because I do want the recognition. I've worked hard for it. I've put in a lot of time and effort, and I do believe there's a lot of value in who I believe are expert peers saying to me, well done, Peter, you are that expert. So yeah, that has been the paradigm shift that's happened. And it's been the most amazingly edifying and empowering process. And it was really quick. It wasn't difficult. And that, I think, was so powerful. When I look at other assessment journeys, and you think, oh, wow, I want to get that level of empowerment and effectiveness out of something. And you think, oh, my goodness, it's going to take me a full year to get there. And you feel overwhelmed and you just want to give up when you start and all those things. This was just wow. It literally, I did have to put in effort of a day and maybe a little longer to really think about it. But it really took me probably max 2 days, because I'm showing where I've done what I've done. And then it took you probably, and you'll explain how long it took you as an assessor, the next bit of time to then give me that recognition. And to me, that was the value add that I received from DLAP. Wow, 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 wow. It was just so powerful. Brilliant, brilliant.
So let's talk about that. So because obviously technology played a big role in this. And we are digitizing, we're going the digitized route. So you would have applied for this through the chatbot, Assessor chatbot, which we've had about 200 other assessors apply for at the moment to just kind of get placed into P4P. And then from the chatbot, went straight into P4P, the technology, and you built your portfolio, you added it, and you assessed in P4P by me. Obviously, your stuff's going to go for moderation, which we're doing on Thursday, just to make sure that we stay within the process, stay in governance, and make sure that, because, there's 8 of us doing this right now, and we're all kind of growing. Tell me about the technology, the digitized journey of this, the reporting, the mistake with your ID number. Tell me a bit about all of that.
So, digitizing is amazing. And I think people believe it to be and it's because they probably haven't used it that often, and we're going to be using it more and more. They thought it would devalue the process, that it would detract from the standard of what we're doing. And I experienced the complete opposite. I believe it edified me. A lot of people think digitizing means that it removes the human factor. It removes the that coaching factor. And you have proved to me in the last 5 days that that is not true. You've proved to me that you can coach me virtually, and that is the power of that report. So we talk about the reporting. So the digital world, the chatbot was super friendly. The chatbot has got the most amazing way of personalizing, one, by the language it uses. And it almost feels like I have a person in the room talking to me in my language, not this highfalutin assessor terminology or ETD terminology that makes my eyes glaze over and I just don't know what I'm hearing. It was really to the point, and it achieved what it wanted, to get my details and to register me onto the system. And then onto the system, all systems are as good. The information that lies there is as good as the people that drive it. So, and that's not to detract from anybody. Mistakes happen. We are human.
100%.
There are still humans that are actually physically putting information in. So first human, that's me. I went on and I went deep dive, quick, I thought, this is a cinch. I'm just going to nail this in 5 seconds. And I did rush through it. And I didn't read. Yet everywhere on every screen, it said, read the checkpoint very carefully. Oh, Mrs. Lim just went straight through. And that was my first blood nose that I got. And it was a good thing. And then it brought us together. We had our first conversation, and I fixed that. And you know why? I could have left it, because everybody said to me, all the people who work in the back office driving DLAP have said to me, don't worry, Peter, you can leave it. It doesn't take away from your result.
Yes.
But in me, self-assessment, I was not happy with just leaving it. I wanted to show that I can step up and improve it. So I went back in and I improved my comment back. Now, what they did on the system was the report that came out has a better balance of my assessor's comments and my self-evaluation. And that was why I decided to change what I had put on. So I didn't change the report. We didn't devalue or invalidate the result in any way between Darren and I. We both just made sure that the report was a true reflection of what occurred at that moment in time. The report is super powerful. Guys, really, it's amazing. From a world where you have a 12-page report, I had a 2-page report, which is done 20 times more in terms of driving my continuous professional development post-assessment. And I believe that was exactly what the purpose of this process was. It's not about giving me a mark of an A and a B and Peter just walks away and doesn't even look at it ever again. It's constantly driving my thought process about mastering my craft as an assessment professional. And that is so cool. That was so powerful. And I let go of my ego around, oh, I got a perceived down rating on one area. But you know what the reporting showed was wow, I'm actually brilliant in certain other areas. And that is what I need to continuously professionalize. And that's what I need to master and hone my craft in. I want to be that master in those areas that I've got a good recognition for. And the others will come. Yes, it will. I do believe I'll round myself off with the other areas. So super opportunity for growth here. Massive, massive.
And of course, the technology is now open to you for the year for your CPD points. So, DLAP's made a decision that you will achieve 50% of your CPD points for this year because you are a new member. So we're automatically providing 50%. The same technology remains open to you for the year for the rest of your CPD points. So for the rest of this year, you'll be creating a portfolio against one or more, one or all or some of those same assessment criteria. What is your feeling around the technology to enable that versus CPD is something you just pay, your money's down, you show them your CV, and all of a sudden you have this CPD rating, and because you wrote an exam, well done, you could write a 3-hour exam, and you are this level, you're so smart, and there's what we're doing is we're going, you need to keep building your portfolio over the year. What are your thoughts around that and the technology to enable that?
So there are 7, there are 7
yes, criteria.
checkpoints, which are brilliant. Because we've kept it at 7, it doesn't overwhelm you psychologically in terms of achieving. And within those 7, I'm focusing on those areas that myself and my mentor and my assessor have earmarked for professional development continuously. And so what we're going to do is it's further linked and hyperlinked on the webpage to areas where I can contribute. So remember I said this process for continuous professional development drives contribution to your craft, to your area of expertise. So it's linked to practical areas of contribution like blogging. And so that was one of the areas. It's within my skill set, my natural passion for writing and for creating. So I will be going in there and writing blogs, and it tracks real time every time I contribute to a blog. The next area is whenever I develop back for policies, back for material for continuous professional development, it goes back into the DLAP family, and that family then ticks off real time how much that is worth in terms of CPD points. So in other, and I'm not knocking other CPD processes, but the biggest mistake is they're not maximizing on the use of technology to create that connection across all avenues of my CPD contribution. So what happens is my CPD happened on one end and it just gets left for a whole year until I get a reminder somewhere on my phone to say, oh, Peter, you've got to renew your membership. In order to renew your membership, you need to do so much. And then I, for the next week, spend hours and hours frantically trying to write that exam that took 3 hours and all that kind of thing. That to me does not prove contribution. What DLAP's doing is it's recognizing every micro moment of my contribution, big or small, to the world of assessment practices.
Well, that's great, Peter. So thank you so much. So the time is up. We've got about another minute or 2 left. Thank you so much for this great interview. I think there's been huge learning on all sides. And yeah, I'm excited for the next step, what's coming. Obviously, next week Friday is another biggie. There's a big thing going on next week Friday, which we won't tell anyone about. Yes, and I really appreciate it. And yeah, let's grow this year and see how we can really keep bringing digital to the world of assessment. And well done. First designated assessor of DLAP. You rock.
Thank you so much. Thank you, DLAP, and the technology and all the people that created it. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And everybody needs to be here this time next week. Super, super excited. Super excited. Darren, you rock. Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Cheers. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.